Hey guys, Genius Files Chapter 4 coming at you. Remember, the skill that we are practicing right now is visualization. So, getting that good mental movie in our minds about what is happening, what we are visualizing and picturing as we're reading. 4. And just before this, you know that Coke and Pepsi have safely landed on the beach. Um, it was a very quick but very dramatic descent to back to the beach. For a minute or two, the twins knelt in the sand, catching their breath, clearing their heads, and trying to comprehend what had just happened to them. Except for a few seagulls circling overhead, the beach was empty. Nobody had seen them land. Finally, Polk had looked up at the cliffs and marveled that he had jumped from such a great height and survived. I told you we should have taken the bus, Pep said, panting. What fun would have that been? Polk replied, cackling. Pep unzipped her wingsuit and peeled it off. There was a dumpster down the beach. She crumpled up the suit and parachute into a big ball and stuffed them into the dumpster. Polk did the same. The wingsuits probably cost somebody hundreds of dollars, more like 1,000, actually. But neither of the twins had ever wanted to see those things again. Together, Polk and Pep climbed the wooden steps leading off the beach to the main road. Looking around, they knew they were about a mile from home. How are we going to tell Mom and Dad about this? Pep asked. Are you crazy? Coke replied. We're not going to say a word to Mom and Dad. You know how they worry. They would never believe it anyway. Would your parents believe you? You came home from school and said that you just got chased by men and had to jump off a cliff. Yeah, mine probably wouldn't either. The twins hiked away from the beach into the hills and along the narrow road until they approached Point Reyes Station. It's a small town in the middle of a national park called Point Reyes National Seashore. Soon they could see their house. There was an RV parked in front with the words Cruise America painted on the side. And there were two figures on the front lawn. Uh-oh, who were the two figures? Bowler dudes or parents? They are waiting for us, Pep said, groaning. And so they were. Dr. and Mrs. McDonald had been sitting there in lawn chairs for a while, fretting and looking up and down the street with binoculars. When they spotted the twins walking toward them, they jumped up to greet them. You're late, Dr. McDonald hollered. Why weren't you on the school bus? We decided to walk home, Coke said, hoping that would end the discussion. Both of you are a mess, Mrs. McDonald yelled. What were you doing? Wrestling on the beach? Is that any way to treat your school clothes? We were worried sick, Dr. McDonald went on. We thought something terrible might have happened. The twins shot glances at each other. If they only knew. We're sorry, they said in unison. It's amazing how a simple, sincere apology will usually melt the hardest of hearts. At least temporarily, Dr. McDonald threw an arm around each of the children and pulled them close. Anything exciting happened today? He asked. The twins looked at each other again. Nah, Coke said. Same stuff, different day. Tell us the truth, their mother said. Were you two in detention again? No, Coke replied indignantly. Don't be ridiculous. We just, jumped off the cliff and parachuted home. Ha, Dr. McDonald chortled. I love you kids. I can totally picture that conversation happening on the front lawn, the kids standing there in front of the parents, kind of nervous, looking back and forth at each other as they're trying to figure out how they're going to cover this up. 5 more minutes, and we are going to call the police to report you missing, Mrs. McDonald told them. Where are your backpacks? Pep had no answer for that one. They had ditched their backpacks up on the cliff when that Maya lady gave them the wingsuits to wear. Pep looked at her brother, who was a much more skillful liar than she. We left them at school, Coke said. We'll get them tomorrow. There was no homework. You should have called home, Mrs. McDonald said sternly. Why do you think we got you cell phones? We forgot, Coke said. When in doubt, we forgot can get you out of just about any mess you got yourself into. I may make you look like an airhead, but that's better than admitting the real reason you did the dumb things you did. You'd forget your heads if they weren't screwed onto your necks, Dr. McDonald said. Actually, Dad, our heads aren't screwed on, Coke replied. They're attached with tendons, ligaments, muscles, that sort of thing. If heads were screwed on, it would be a simple matter to do head transplants. Dr. McDonald shook his head. Kids. He was the kind of man who was organized almost to the point of obsession. Everything in his office was tidy, efficient, labeled and filed in alphabetical, chronological, or numerical order. He took pride in the fact that he could put his finger on any piece of paper he needed within seconds. So I'm picturing this library where you walk in, like super neat, organized books. Everything's labeled. Everything is in either ABC or alphabetical order, numerical, which is one, two, three, or chronological order, which is order in time. So you start with the earliest date and work your way to the most recent date. It was inconceivable to him why his children lacked this essential human trait. They must have inherited a scatterbrain gene from their mother, he assumed. Mrs. McDonald prepared an early dinner while the twins showered and changed their clothes upstairs. Her husband's professional life revolved around the serious study of American history, but her interests were different. Mrs. McDonald was the founder and only employee of Amazing But True, a web-based magazine devoted to odd facts and some would argue useless information. Every day, almost a million people clicked on the site to learn that, for instance, the total surface area of two human lungs would just about fill a tennis court. Great visual there, right? Or some other piece of trivia. Neither the McDonald parents made a lot of money, but Mrs. McDonald's income from Amazing But True was more than the salary of Dr. McDonald earned teaching history at in the university. Because of this, when tough family decisions needed to be made, it was usually Mrs. McDonald who called the shots. She rang the little bell as she kept in the kitchen, and the rest of the family charged down from the second floor. Spaghetti was on the table. Any anger Mrs. McDonald had about the children coming home late from school was gone. She heaped meatballs on everyone's plates. Are you kids excited about our trip? She asked after they had dug into the food. We should be somewhere in the Midwest next week for your birthday. And we've got to get to Washington, D.C. by July 4th for Aunt Judy's wedding. And all the excitement, Coke and Pep had almost forgotten. In 2 days, after school let out for the summer, they would be leaving for a driving vacation that would take them nearly 3,000 miles across the United States, then back. I can't wait, Pep gushed, with just a bit more enthusiasm than was necessary. In fact, she dreaded the trip. At home, there were new clothes that needed to be tried on, texts from friends that needed to be replied to, videos and TV shows that needed to be watched, and websites that needed to be surfed. It will be good for you kids to see Mount Rushmore, the great national parks, and the Lincoln Memorial, said Dr. McDonald. All those things you learn about in school, but never see with your own eyes. Oh, that reminds me, Mrs. McDonald said. You'll never believe what I found out today. Do you know what they have in Cawker City, Kansas? What? Everybody said. The largest ball of twine in the world. So twine, if you aren't sure what that is, it's very thick, like a yarn or like a string. It's very thick. A lot of times people use it to bale hay with for farmers. And one other thing that I haven't mentioned is that most of the things in this book that they mention are true. So some of these museums that they visit throughout the book are actually true, which makes this kind of fun. Some guy spent years rolling twine in his garage to create this ball, and now it's gigantic. We can go see it on our way east. Cole glanced over at Pep to see if she was giggling. Their mom always got excited when she heard about some oddball place that could she could put on Amazing But True. Pep avoided making eye contact with her brother because she knew it would crack her up. Dr. McDonald just rolled his eyes. It was just a silly ball of twine, Bridge, he said. He had shortened Bridget to Bridge on their first date and had been calling his wife that ever since. It's just not any ball of twine, Ben, Mrs. McDonald shot back. It's the biggest one in the world. It's twine, Dr. McDonald argued, even though he knew from experience that arguing with his wife was a waste of time. It's not the Bloody Grand Canyon. It's not Mount Everest. It's a ball of string. I must see it with my own eyes, she replied simply. And that was the end of this discussion. Dr. McDonald shook his head. One of the things that attracted him to his wife in the first place was their mutual interest in history. Only later did he realize that she was interested in the history of nonsense. Weird places, meaningless facts, strange people, enormous balls of twine. Coke knew about the ball of twine in Kansas. In second grade, he had read about it in Weekly Reader. He remembered that it was almost 9 tons, which is 18,000 pounds. I should probably mention here that, in fact, Coke McDonald remembered just about everything he had ever seen or experienced. The school psychologist tested him and told Coke that he had an eidetic or photographic memory. In his mind, he could see just about any image he had ever seen with his eyes. In second grade, Coke had memorized the periodic table of elements all the way to Lawrencium, and he did it without trying. Okay, okay, we'll go see the silly ball of twine if that'll make you happy, Dr. McDonald said grumpily. Coke had a theory to explain grown-ups, as he did for most things in life. In his view, babies are born with a specific number of brain cells, which waste away and die off as people get older. So by the time they reach 30, and certainly by the time they reach 40, most of their brain cells are gone. This explains why grown-ups do and say the things they do. To back up his theory, in third grade, Coke did a school research project involving music. He made a list of the greatest composers in history, from Beethoven to the Beatles. Then he tracked when they wrote their best music. Irving Berlin wrote his first hit song, Alexander's Ragtime Band, when he was just 23 years old. The Beatles made Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band their most innovative album when John Lennon was 27 and Paul McCartney was 25. Beethoven started going deaf at 31. Mozart was composing minuets at age 5 and was dead at 35. Almost as a rule, composers created their finest work in their 20s. There was a severe drop after the age of 30. This, to Coke, was proof that the human brain deteriorates by the time people become parents, which explains why parents are so weird. They're essentially operating with an empty skull filled with dead brain cells. What do you think? Is that true? I probably wouldn't run that theory past your own parents. The spaghetti hit the spot. The rest of the dinner conversation was all about the cross country trip. They would be heading out in 2 days after the last day of school. It was Dr. McDonald's view that all Americans should travel cross country at least once in their lives. You can't see America by flying over it, he told the family. You've got to hit the open road. Breathe in the fresh air, explore the country like the pioneers did. We'll be like the modern day Lewis and Clark expedition. Did Lewis and Clark have an RV? Asked Coke, smirking. Maybe we'll be like a modern day Donner Party, Pep remarked. Very funny, said Mrs. McDonald. And this is true. So listen, because it's kind of something you don't want to visualize, but you probably will be. The Donner Party consisted of a group of families from Illinois who tried to get to California in 1846. So picture 1846, what are most of their vehicles? Okay, not cars, right? So usually like horse-drawn wagons. They got caught in early winter snowstorms, ran out of food, and were forced to resort to cannibalism to survive. And if you're not sure what cannibalism is, it's when one species eats their own. So humans eating their own people. Pat found the Donner Party fascinating. If we had to eat one of us, she said as she held up a meatball with her fork, which one of us would you eat? I'd eat Dad, Coke replied. He weighs the most. So he's got the most meat on him. But it's mostly fat, Pep countered. Mom would be more tender. Are you calling me fat? Asked Dr. McDonald. That's sick, Mrs. McDonald said. No Donner Party talk over dinner. The dishes were cleared away and the table sponged off. Dr. and Mrs. McDonald went upstairs to begin packing for the trip, leaving the twins to load the dishwasher. Remember that lady in the red suit we met at the top of the cliff? Pep asked her brother. Yeah, Coke recalled. Her name was Maya. Do you think she's dead? Both twins shuddered at the thought. Maybe, Coke said. I remember what she said right after the dart hit her on the neck. TGF. Oh, yeah. What do you think that means? Thank God it's Friday. Coke guessed. Today is Thursday, Pep told him. It has to mean something else. Beats me, he replied. It's probably nothing. Those bowler dudes in golf carts probably weren't even after us. Maybe they were trying to get somebody else. Pep added detergent to the dishwasher and turned it on. She told her brother, I don't really want to go cross country, but now I think it's a good time for us to go on a long trip. Why? Because I have the feeling that somebody out there is trying to kill us. Dun, dun.